Hampton, headed up through Bonanza, up maybe towards Stockbridge tonight. So Clayton and Henry counties, we have a tornado warning for you. Rotation could be seen, at least weak rotation, around Bonanza tonight, and could be headed up toward a south side of Atlanta, maybe around Jonesboro, 735, Conley, around 748 for you this evening. So you've got anywhere between 5 and roughly 18 minutes to take shelter this evening. Let's take it in farther south and east. We've got a little bit of an inflow notch here on this tornado warning in Butts, Henry, and Monroe County this evening. Jackson and Jenkinsburg, please take shelter this evening. There is going to be some rotation right here on Highway 36, and that may come over Jackson or slide just to the west of Jackson. It's a close call, so I would just take shelter as quickly as you can. Jackson around 7:38, so about 7 minutes from now. Worthville around 7:48. So again, lowest love of your home. A mobile home is not a safe place to be. If you can quickly find another sturdy shelter nearby, a neighbor's home, then I'd get there quickly. If you can't, then just do your best to hunker down in an interior room and stay away from exterior walls. Now we take you up to the Georgia-South Carolina state line. I'll draw it on you for you right there. This is South Carolina. This is Georgia right here. 2 tornado warnings for us right now that extend through 3 different storms. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. Habersham, Rabun, and Stevens County right now under a tornado warning, and then Oconee County under a tornado warning as well. By the way, they're playing a football game in Clemson. Those storms are not far away at all. Maybe a little bit of rotation on those. Hard to see it. Listen, we've got a long distance between us and the radar, so it could be looking thousands of feet up at this point. But in either sense, make sure you're taking the proper precautions here. Toccoa toward Turnerville, and then coming past Walhalla here, I would take shelter quickly tonight into your basement, into your interior room. Get on the ground level. Don't be on the 2nd story or the 3rd story. Not a safe place for us to be tonight. But again, strong storms coming to Atlanta for us this evening. No warnings in Atlanta itself. They surround us. Another squall line here coming through central and northern Alabama. No warnings on that one. Another squall line down here coming through South Georgia, coastal Georgia, then down along I-95 in Florida. So you've got 3 different bands as a result of shear produced out ahead of what is left of Delta. So a lot happening for us this evening, folks. Hold on to your hats and be weather savvy. Make sure that you paid attention to the radar tonight. Well, let's get you now caught up on what we know about Delta. Now a post-tropical system, more than 500,000 customers without power in Louisiana, Texas, and in Mississippi. 6.4 million people under a severe threat this evening. We just went through some of those warnings for you. Good news, Louisiana's governor says there are no fatalities to report from Delta. Can't even remember the last time, Dr. Nab, that we had a hurricane that significant. Category 2 reported no deaths. That's fantastic. Where do we go now with Delta? What's happening tonight? What happens through the weekend?
I think tonight the severe threat will make a transition to more of the flash flood threat in the Carolinas. You can see the band that's set up over southeast Louisiana that has stayed together all the way here into Georgia, and that's why we've got the severe weather going on tonight. We had the destabilization of the atmosphere in the warm sector of what is now a frontal system, and the wind shear has really been the key here. Low-level winds out here. 5,000 feet, the winds are coming out of the south, so you got that veering wind, that change in wind speed and direction with height over Georgia, along with just enough instability to produce the severe weather. But as the sun's going down now, I think that instability is going to wane, and so we're going to lessen the severe threat. I don't think we're going to get that tornado watch extended beyond what's currently in effect. But then, what's in Georgia now going up into western North Carolina and western Virginia, where the flash flood threat will be the main concern.
They are. The tornado sirens going off in Douglas County, Georgia, as a result of numerous tornado warnings across North Georgia throughout the evening. We still have a tornado threat tonight. Look at Atlanta. Boy, it is an ugly evening for you. The good news about Atlanta is, with all of the warnings we've had, we do not have one in Atlanta. They've been north of you, they've been south of you, and it seems like things lined up just right to cut us a break there in Atlanta. It doesn't mean you're not getting storms. It's still windy, and it is raining to beat the band for you right now, but no warnings. But you can see the storms right now coming right through town. And so you're going to be in it here for a bit, and that's going to go from the southwest side of town all the way through the northeast side of town. No one's getting missed by this one tonight. Let's go south of town. We've got a tornado warning tonight, and that does include around the Stockbridge area and coming across 75, maybe even 675 tonight. Clayton and Henry counties are under our tornado warning until 7:45. So we've got a couple of minutes left on this one. If there's a tornado in there, it is rain wrapped, but I think it might be gusting out a little bit. We might starting to get a little bit of straight line winds there, but those could still be in excess of 60 miles an hour. Could be North Clayton and Ellenwood, Conley up toward Gresham Park and Glenwood Hills here. So in all those places, be ready for some very intense winds to come in. It looks like they've issued a new warning just to the east of that. Now, same counties in essence, but there might be a little bit more rotation within that. Adam Dean, our weather producer, doing a good job of manning the radar tonight. Could be some rotation here, but could also be a little bit of rotation in there. We'll time that out for you. Headed up towards Stockbridge around 7:51 this evening, so about another maybe 11 or 12 minutes before it's there. So please take shelter in your basement or your lowest level and get to an interior room as quickly as you can to protect yourself from that one. Another tornado warning down toward Jackson, Georgia tonight. Butts and Henry County under a tornado warning this evening. Same thing. Could be quick spin-ups, but it may also be a rain wrapped. It's hard to see if there's any rotation in there, but if there is, could be some about right there. But maybe even make an argument that we had dual rotations within that. Moving off to the north here pretty quickly, Fincherville, 7:50, the expected arrival time of that potential tornado, but a lot of rain with all these storms. Haven't seen any really tall thunderstorms out of these. We've got a lot of rotation near the surface, and so that's why we're seeing a lot of these storms without really high cloud tops form some funnels. Habersham, Rabun, and Stevens County extreme northeast Georgia under a tornado warning. We've actually got two clusters of storms there, but it's really this one that came past Toccoa here. Then we've got another cluster right in there. That storm has weakened significantly in Oconee County. I don't think we have a tornado any longer on that one, but Oconee County still under that warning till 8:15. I suspect that they could potentially drop that one. Clemson's playing a football game right now, and we're only about 15 miles outside of where those warnings are. Bigger picture, you can see that we've got numerous bands of thunderstorms tonight through Alabama, through Georgia, and then Georgia down through Florida this evening. So all this happening in a high wind shear environment, producing these storms this evening. Look at these storms racing along I-95 tonight from Jacksonville down through Daytona Beach, but even some more storms coming through Tallahassee this evening. So just be aware that the threat is going to be there this evening, and the tornado threat does exist there in Georgia as well. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Delta and what we saw with a storm that roared ashore about this time yesterday with intense storm surge. Look at that. The water was up significantly, not to mention the wave action on top of that. Some places getting upwards of 10 feet of water. This in Cypremort here, Cypremort Point in Louisiana. And that's all salt water there, folks. Boy, that's going to do a number on the truck, too. A lot of steel and salt water don't like each other. If you didn't know, and rust happens pretty darn quickly. Our Dr. Nab is here with us tonight. What's I don't know, it just kind of takes your breath away, Dr. Nab. What's so unfortunate about Delta is it happened so quickly after Laura and happened so close to where Hurricane Laura hit back in late August.
Yeah, it's really cruel. I mean, there's no other way to say it. The atmosphere has not been kind to Louisiana this year, and I wanted to show you just how close the landfall locations of those two hurricanes were. Now, 12 miles is pretty close, but Mike, it's interesting to note that 12 miles made a big difference in terms of who got the worst storm surge, because Laura's landfall location was here near Cameron, and its maximum storm surge was right over Rutherford Beach Creole. That was where the center of Delta came ashore, and its worst storm surge was a little bit farther to the east.
They were a little bit different storms, too. One was a little bit larger and more intense. One was smaller, less intense. But there were some gauges, Dr. Nab, that set records with Delta that didn't set them with Laura.
Yeah, every hurricane is different, and leading into it, we were saying some of you are going to get worse wind and water than you did during Laura, because where the path is, where the structure is different. And the forecast from the Hurricane Center was for 7 to 11 feet of saltwater flooding above normally dry ground somewhere there in the central coast of Louisiana. And those numbers weren't as high as for Laura, but 7 to 11 feet is pretty bad. And how did that turn out? Well, they got 9 feet, and this is that gauge you're talking about, where this is the highest storm surge flooding this gauge has ever reported. But that is not where the highest surge was. It's probably somewhere in between, probably about 10 feet. So that forecast from the Hurricane Center, pretty accurate.
Amazing how good they've gotten at it and how reliable those numbers are. Dr. Knabb, thank you. Stick around. More on the aftermath of Delta coming up after this.
It's almost unbelievable this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
Weather Gone Viral, tomorrow night at 9, here on the Weather Channel.
Keeping you up to date on severe weather tonight, including tornado warnings around the Atlanta metro area. That's a live look at downtown and Centennial Olympic Park. Tornado warnings for us tonight. It is a wet night. It is pouring on you in Atlanta. The downtown area, you do not have a tornado warning, but a newly issued warning southeast side of town does include DeKalb County. So Clayton, DeKalb, and Henry counties tornado warning for you, including around the Forest Park area, Stockbridge, Stonecrest. That cluster could get up near maybe Decatur and maybe even Stone Mountain tonight. You take a look at now it's very close to the radar, by the way. We're using the terminal Doppler radar. A little bit of rotation right there near Highway 20 and 675. Could come past Conley tonight and then head maybe just slightly east of north here. So Ellenwood around 751, expected to be on your doorstep. In Panthersville around 801 and Glenwood Hills around 804 for you tonight. Take shelter in your basement or your ground level floor away from windows and exterior walls. Now this warning here, and the storm is basically pushing out of there now, so the warning we just showed you is now up in here. So all that's pretty much a null and void at this point. And the warnings, and the storm in essence are moving so quickly, the warning doesn't really do you much good. The warning includes that storm that's out of the polygon at this point, maybe a little bit of rotation just north of Jackson, but a strong line of storms here slicing through Atlanta tonight, and we may see more storms erupt throughout the evening as those storms are going to come up across I-20 for you tonight, but basically lining up along I-75. Then they'll converge and go up I-85 as well. Northeast Georgia and through the upstate of South Carolina, we also have tornado warnings here as well. Two little storms that formed, one there and one there. One that may be regenerating here now in Walhalla. This one here, boy, what's interesting is that the warning is, you know, that we had a little storm there as well. That warning, there's nothing in it anymore. Mostly it's along the one in South Carolina at this point, including Oconee County, although that storm may then slice over into Georgia and hit near the town Clayton tonight. But Walhalla, storm is basically on top of us at this point. Don't necessarily see rotation within that, but I would take these storms very seriously and be aware of what the threat is going to be for you tonight. Again, we're playing a game at Clemson this evening. They just got underway there. But we get thousands of people in that stadium tonight. No, they're not doing capacity, I don't think, but it's still, there's a risk there with clusters of people. Look at the storms that are hitting us this evening. A line of storms coming through Alabama tonight, a line of storms that's coming through Georgia, another line from Georgia down through Florida this evening. Look at this line that comes down through Jacksonville this evening. Really strong storms here with more lightning than any of the storms that we've seen today. Jacksonville down toward Daytona Beach, heads up. What's going on in the atmosphere? Why are we seeing this? All right, well, you could really blame Delta in essence. The remnant low is sitting in here, right? We've got pretty strong wind shear that's happening for us at this point with a low-level flow that's more or less in this direction. We've got an upper-level, mid-level flow that cuts across that at a pretty significant angle. So the low-level wind shear at this point is enough to get these storms rotating, even though we haven't had a ton of instability today. Maybe we had just enough. But from experience, I can tell you, if you have a good amount of low-level wind shear, you can overcome just about any other deficit in the atmosphere that you might have to create severe weather, and you can get these storms to go. There's a look at the area that's under a tornado watch until 9 o'clock tonight. Atlanta, Columbus, and Macon, Georgia, all included within that. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about Delta with our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb. And what else could be coming here, Dr. Knabb, in a season that just does not want to end?
Well, these tropical waves that come out of Africa every 2, 3, or 4 days, that incidentally led to the development of Delta in the Western Caribbean because it went all the way across the Atlantic. So we got to watch those. This is the fourth Greek name that we've tapped into this year. So we've gone through 21 names on the conventional alphabet, and then we've added 4 more names because we've had 25 named storms this year and 9 hurricanes. 5 of those have made landfall in the U.S. now with Delta, and we've had 3 major hurricanes. Delta is the third one of those. We're way ahead of schedule on how many named storms. This is the most we've ever had by this date, but plenty of other years have had more hurricanes and more major hurricanes. But gosh, so many named storms. And here's the next area to watch. That's another tropical wave that we have to keep tabs on. Hurricane Center's giving this about a 20% chance of becoming a depression or storm in the next 5 days over the central tropical Atlantic. The good news is by the time it gets near the Windward and Leeward Islands, the conditions will probably get less conducive for development. Here it is on the visible imagery before we lost it on the visible as the sun went down. Enough thunderstorm activity with that wave to give it some chance to develop. But even though it has warm waters ahead of it, and even warmer than average waters for this time of year, which has been dominating the whole Atlantic basin, we do have a little friend in the central Atlantic, middle upper level trough here, a mid-oceanic trough that should increase the wind shear and keep that tropical wave from developing anytime soon. We got a long way to go in this hurricane season. We've got another hour ahead. Mike will be back with the severe weather going through Georgia. Stay with us.
We're watching tornadoes tonight, tornadoes including spin-ups like this. This happened in Good Hope, Georgia. Not that long ago, just before sunset, a little funnel spinning up here, maybe even a tornado touchdown here. There are a few areas around Atlanta and near Atlanta where there's been reports of damage. We had some reports of damage and trees down around Noonan covering the road there and some power outages that have occurred. That's a live look at Atlanta where the storms are coming right through the city right now. No tornado warning in Atlanta specifically, but we do have tornado warnings nearby. So let's update you on that, including a tornado warning that's on the southeast side of town. There's a look at the heavy rain coming through Atlanta right now, but down here in DeKalb County, coming past Forest Park and about to hit you on the perimeter on the southeast side of town here, coming past Stonecrest, could slide up toward maybe Decatur or a Tucker tonight. Forest Park, Stockbridge, and Stonecrest, those are the areas where you're under a tornado warning. Want you to get to your safe place as quickly as you can. A big cluster of rain here, so even if there's a tornado in there, you're never going to see it. It's dark now. It could be rain wrapped, and it's basically coming over the radar, which I know that may be like, okay, great, we're going to get a good look at it. It actually might be too close to the radar, so we're going to switch to another radar over from the airport. Their rotation could be right in there. All right, and that might be coming up towards, say, Stonecrest, but there could also be a little bit of rotation outside of Forest Park. So with these lines that are coming through, quick spin-ups happen. They spin up very quickly. They spin down very quickly. But a lot of them, again, that thing is basically right on top of the radar at this point. All right, so let's show you what's going on with some of these other storms, because there's there are more storms that are lining up down to the south. Although they're not dropping these warnings, I'm not exactly sure why those warnings still exist there. It could be actually a computer error, but those storms are now pushing out of those locations. I want to take you up to the warnings that we've got in North Georgia and in South Carolina tonight, in the upstate of South Carolina. 2 clusters of storms here, including this one that's reformed. Thing almost died and then reformed around Walhalla tonight. Oconee County, that's where the warning is. It's until 8:15. Surprised to see how much that regenerated, and it's coming basically right over Walhalla. I'm going to ask Adam Dean if he might be able to zoom in just a tad on the radar a little bit, and we'll get the names to pop in there. Walhalla sitting right in there. And thank you, Adam. And there's a look at the storm coming going right past us at this point. That cluster is pretty strong. This one's also developed a little bit more oomph to it. They both might actually have a little bit of hail within them too. So another threat that you'll have, you want to park the car inside cover tonight. That storm, by the way, headed toward Clayton, Georgia this evening, and the one coming past Walhalla, mostly into sparsely populated areas of the upstate of South Carolina. Very hilly terrain here, and very few and far between when it comes to the homes there. A lot of storms tonight in line segments here. We've got a line that's coming through Alabama, a line through Georgia, then Georgia and Florida tonight, and then just a large shield of rain through Tennessee and North Carolina tonight. So there's a lot going on. By the way, there's where Delta, or what's left of Delta, spins back in Mississippi. So all the dynamics are out ahead of it on the east side. Tornado watch, by the way, continues for us this evening. That goes until 9 o'clock this evening. Could they extend that? It's possible, but I think we're going to start losing any instability that we might have this evening. Of course, there'll still be some low-level wind shear out there, but ultimately I think that the threat is going to subside as we go later and later through the evening. All right, let's bring in our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb. I'm a little bit surprised, Dr. Knabb, how much is going on tonight with the severe weather. Maybe it shouldn't be when you look at the wind shear in particular, but this is always a threat that we have when you have a landfalling tropical system. Yeah,
this just adds to the long history of hurricanes that have made landfall on the central Gulf Coast and then in the southeastern U.S. been a pretty significant tornado producer. The likes of Katrina and Ivan and so many others have been big tornado producers in places like Georgia, like Katrina did. This is not a depression anymore, but the low, that is our post-tropical cyclone, is centered over Mississippi, but it has become a frontal system. It's got a warm front off to the east, cold front extending down to the south, and after it reached land, the wind shear, the steering, the dry air all helped to transform this from a tropical system into a frontal system. And watch if the radar is any indication of how these can make a transformation. This is it. Watch how that band that forms over southeast Louisiana shortly after landfall holds together through Mississippi, Alabama, Florida Panhandle, and then now into Georgia. And there's always been kind of a frontal zone here in the southeast, and this has just merged with Delta. And look at this flow into the warm sector that has provided the moisture and, as Mike said, just enough instability to provide the severe weather today. And as he mentioned, the wind shear at the low levels has been the kicker here. I mean, the instability isn't tremendous, but you got this low-level flow out of the southeast, and then you have the veering winds a little bit more out of the southwest at 5,000 feet, and that is the low-level wind shear that has combined with just enough instability here in the flow off the Gulf and the Atlantic to produce the severe weather. But with sunset now, that instability will be waning, and maybe the wind shear won't be enough to continue that tornado watch past 9 o'clock. And I think that cluster of thunderstorms will start to become less of a severe weather producer as the main problem and more of a flash flooding concern for upstate South Carolina, western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee. The mountains are going to start catching that inflow and squeeze out additional moisture. And then when that water falls into that complex terrain, the low spots could have some flooding problems. And then tomorrow during the day, we'll have some rain moving through the mid-Atlantic, Mike. So things have always made transformations after a hurricane makes landfall. You get hurricane, then you get a tropical storm knocking down trees, then you get severe weather, and now you're going to get flooding.
Yeah. It's like a weather transformer. Don't like it at all. It's an Autobot or Decepticon. I don't know. Folks, let's get to Delta and what happened yesterday in southwestern Louisiana as it roared ashore. And it had a solid amount of wind with it, folks. Winds gusted as high as 100 miles per hour. Here's a look at the damage in Abbeville, Louisiana, where that canopy from that gas station got ripped right off and plopped right down under the parking lot there. Those are big wind catchers. Wind gets up underneath them, and boy, they just rip right off. And then we take it to Pecan Island in Louisiana. Debris everywhere, right? It looks like maybe the plows came through already and cleaned the road up a little bit, but look at all that mud and gook and stuff that'll now need to be hauled out of there. A lot of cleanup to do, and this blankets a lot of the area. Then into Lake Charles, plenty of standing water that we had here in a lot of neighborhoods and some of the roads that you just didn't want to get into at all. It's just an unfortunate situation in a city that was hit so hard just a few weeks ago. Even folks there, got to get out the high-profile trucks. But a lot of blue tarps on the roofs there, and some of those blue tarps have been ripped off because of the hurricane. So Lake Charles, about 30 miles north of Creole, where Delta made landfall yesterday evening. Our Justin Michaels rode out the storm there. He's with us now this evening in a much calmer evening, thank goodness. Justin,
yeah.
I want you to compare, if you can, what happened yesterday, what it felt like, what it looked like, compared to what the aftermath is today.
Today, that's a really interesting question, Mike. It is extraordinarily, we just got done commenting about this, about how quiet it is, how calm it is. Where is everybody? We know this street, we haven't seen a soul on this street yet. We have to believe these people will eventually come back, repopulate the area after evacuating, but it's very, very calm. Whereas, of course, during a Category 2 hurricane coming ashore like Delta was, and whipping through 95-mile-per-hour winds, more than 9 inches of rain, well, that's a very different situation. That's anything but calm, and that was just 24 hours ago. But as we sit here right now, the power outage numbers are still extraordinarily high. Just in the state of Louisiana, more than 450,000 customers are without power. Over to our west in Texas, about 80,000 customers are without power. So people are going to be going into this evening with no power, which means no air conditioning. And that's not going to be a nice evening because it was 85 degrees here today in Lake Charles, Louisiana. So definitely uncomfortable temperatures. It's definitely still very warm here and very humid, just like the South typically is. But people are still doing what they can to push forward. We actually came by a lady today in her 80s, and she lived through the storm actually in Beaumont, Texas, but she came back today to see her home, and her home had about an inch of water on every floor in that home when she came in. And for her and for countless other people, cleanup is now the name of the game again. 44 days after Laura went through, they're doing it all over again with Delta. Listen right now.
The wind, it took out the ceiling. The rain came through. And now it's water all in every room I got. All my clothes is wet. So I'm trying to wait till the lights come back on so I can wash them all over and dry them off. Other than that.
Mrs. Williams, were you here during the storm?
No.
Good. That's good. Where did you evacuate to?
This last one, we went to Beaumont.
Okay.
We just got back today.
And when you came back, what were you expecting, and then what did you see? Was there a difference? Was it better or was it worse?
It was. I wasn't expecting water in the house. It's in every room I got. I've been mopping all day in there. Bedroom is full of water, bathroom full of water, and all my clothes is wet.
And is that because of Laura coming through 44 days ago? You had roof damage, right?
Roof damage.
Okay. So as you came through town today, you came back, you evacuated before Delta, and you came back. What was it like to drive through the streets of Lake Charles?
It was sad. We couldn't even come this way. My son worked there for George Thibodeau, so he told us to go and hit Broad Street and then come down, because you can't get to your house that way. It was full of water there, like a river. So that's what we did, and come up and through the back there.
Our Vella Williams there, in her 80s, having to live through this twice in 6 weeks. She remembers Rita. She and so many other people we spoke with over the course of this storm, Mike Bettis, say that Laura was worse than Rita in their, in their feelings. And then you add Delta on top of it. And Mike, you see the endless piles of debris behind me here. It's really important to remember, Mike, in the 6 weeks between Laura and Delta, they were able to clean up 1.54 million cubic yards of debris just like that. And they still have debris to clean up. And Mike, to put that amount in perspective, after Rita, it took them 11 months to clean up 1.5 million cubic yards of debris. This time they did it in 6 weeks, and Mike, they still have so much more to do across this entire city.
It is just an unrelenting season, and you got to feel for the poor folks there in Lake Charles, what they've had to endure. Thank you so much, Justin. Really appreciate you telling those stories. And boy, you feel for her. How many times can you go through something like that, right? I appreciate that. Let's show you some of the damage done by Delta. This in Westlake, Louisiana. Look at all the blue tarps on the roofs here, but you can still see some spots here that were re-damaged as a result. Look at this mobile home, trashed. You know, again, some of the highest wind speeds that we saw were over in Texas. On the west side of the storm, we had 95 to 100 mile per hour winds. You see some of the tarps have been damaged in some of these homes, and so the water just comes right back in, much like the woman that you just heard there from Justin. And you just, I get it, folks. I'm with you. It's just exhausting. It's frustrating. It's sad. It's all those things in one. You just, it's just snowball of emotions at this point. Then we show you what happened with Creole. We're going to show you the time lapse. Creole was basically the landfall location of the hurricane. This is coming in before. Watch the heavy rain come in on the north side of the storm. The road ends up becoming a river and impassable. Then the eye. Look how calm it gets in the eye. The clouds change direction, and then the southern eye comes in, and you do it all over again. You go from dry to a puddle to a swamp. Delta spreading rain into the Tennessee Valley for us tonight, and then into the mid-Atlantic and southeast. We've got plenty of storms, by the way, also in the northeast. Unrelated, we've got a really intense squall line in the front that's coming in through the northeast, and we've had severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings for us tonight through Maine and New Hampshire, getting hit pretty hard tonight from Rumford over toward Waterville and getting close to Augusta tonight. Androscoggin, Franklin, Kennebec counties all under severe thunderstorm warnings. Storms going south of Berlin right now and down toward Conway in New Hampshire tonight. Carroll, Coos, and Grafton counties are under severe thunderstorm warnings. That's a really intense line. Then we take you through this line that goes from Greenville up toward, say, Presque Isle and Houghton tonight. That line's got a ton of All right, we are watching severe weather for you tonight, including strong storms, even tornado-warned storms coming through Atlanta Metro right now. Temperatures in the 70s, a soaking rain for you this evening, and a little cluster of wind that might be getting you on the near east side of Atlanta around Grant Park and maybe close to Druid Hills for you this evening. The tornado warning for us tonight is in DeKalb County, headed up toward the Tucker area, coming past Stockbridge tonight. Stockbridge down here at the bottom of your screen, and that storm pushing off to the north this evening. A ton of rain happening for you right now, and a lot of different areas where you're going to want to be taking shelter. Again, east side of Atlanta right now under a tornado warning for you, so please get to your safe spot. That's going to include a basement if you have one. If you don't have a basement, ground level of your home and inside an interior room. Redan, Stonecrest, and Tucker urging you to get to your safe spot as quickly as you can tonight. Going to put on the velocities tonight and see what we can see. There's a little bit of spin in here. There's a little bit of spin. That's that near side, a spin. A little bit of spin toward Covington. So if we animate this, just watch all the little different features that are forming tonight, and these may be enough to knock out power for you at times. Watch these things spin up and in. Isn't it just nuts to see them all happen like that? But we've got this really intense low-level wind shear that's occurring for us right now. We have low-level winds that are kind of coming in this angle. They have higher-level winds that are coming in more in this angle. And so it's just nailing us right now in the Atlanta metro, not to mention the heavy rain that we're getting. So you could get some localized flooding that's happening for you. There are some areas along I-75 just south of downtown that are notorious for flooding. But now you're getting a really heavy cluster that's come through Atlanta and then going up on the north side of Atlanta. So it's north side and east side, but there's also another big cluster of rain down around Union City this evening as well. So a few different areas to be concerned about tornadoes as well as flash flooding. Look at that line that's coming right through town, although again, another line that's forming from maybe near LaGrange and Noonan could potentially come up to Atlanta as well. We'll talk more about the warnings here coming up, but our Robert Ray caught up with one man who's doing all he can to keep his spirits high in Lake Charles, Louisiana after Hurricane Delta, not just for himself, but also for his neighbors.
It's the second direct hit in just 6 weeks for Southwest Louisiana. Hurricane Delta whipped in on Friday night.
Emotionally, I feel for a lot of people. I feel for myself. I know as long as my family and my neighbors, I look after them too, so.
Fred Marner stayed in his home for both hurricanes Laura and Delta. Now, amid piles of debris,
Owner, and now gone. So many people in this region are sitting down with family and friends and thinking about what just happened in the past 6 weeks. 2 hurricanes, stress, fear, anxiety. But people are not the only ones who have suffered.
just outside Lake Charles, agriculture.
And they find a loose gap in a fence, possibly from hurricane debris flying or trees coming down on fences. And of course, this is the first morning after the storm, so there's quite a bit more out. We've been doing this since daybreak, so we do what we can do to try to help the public out, cattle owners, ranchers, anybody. We're out here to help them. We're not out here to harm the cattle or anything, but we do need to get them secured behind fences.
About 10 miles to the east in Iowa, Louisiana, many roads have standing water. Hurricane Delta dumped 17 inches of rain here. Just before the storm came in, we visited with the Becknell family, who at the time were emotionally distraught and not sure if they were going to ride out Hurricane Delta or evacuate.
I believe that the Lord's going to protect us, and we'll have a home. Anyway.
The Becknells decided to hunker down and stay. Today, surrounded by their kids and grandchildren, their home intact, as well as their sense of humor when asked what their hope is.
That we don't have a blizzard.
That we do not get another hurricane. We hear there's another one out there, and that 2020 just goes away.
Thousands of people here just got their power and water back after having none for all of September. Now, Hurricane Delta has knocked it out again, but officials expect a faster fix this time around.
It's just enough, you know. People in this area need a break, and need a big break.
A well-deserved break that will allow the Becknells and other families to fully recover from this record season. Robert Ray, The Weather Channel.
Thank you, Robert. Back to the tornado warning that we have in Atlanta Metro tonight. Atlanta sits right here. We've got a tornado warning east of there in DeKalb County tonight, including around Scottsdale and Tucker. Please take shelter quickly this evening. We've got a little bit of an inflow right in there and some spin around Avondale Estates, so please take shelter quickly there, coming past Verdun as well. There's also been a little bit of spin here near east side of Atlanta. A couple of different areas where we're seeing spins on the radar tonight, but let's time out the one that's got the tornado warning on it. Stone Mountain, 826 in Lilburn, around 8:35. Get to your safe spot right away. We're back after this. That's what has happened with Delta over the last 24 hours, and now we're still dealing with ramifications of it, including production of severe weather across the southeast, primarily in Georgia tonight, including some very strong storms in Atlanta. Tornado warning on the east side of town, including in DeKalb County, including around Avondale Estates and over toward Verdun as well. Those storms moving up toward Tucker tonight. That warning until 8:30 this evening. I'm going to show you what's happening with that because it's also producing a tremendous amount of rain. A lot of places around Metro Atlanta have picked up more than 2 inches of rain here in about the last hour or so. But those storms moving off to the north here pretty quickly. This warning goes until 8:30, so it's going to drop. And there you go. It dropped to right now, but I would not be surprised if at some point more warnings are issued this evening because we've seen a lot of spins on the radar. There's a spin there, there's a spin there, there's a spin there, there's a spin there. Will any of those be enough for the Weather Service to pull the trigger and call them tornadoes? We're going to start losing the dynamics in the atmosphere for that, but there are still possibilities. I mean, there's all kinds of little swirlies happening for us tonight, so just be aware there could be a short fuse tornado warnings issued tonight. You may need to take shelter very, very quickly. Having said that, there's a ton of rain out there tonight. There could be some localized flooding. Now concerned about a second line of storms that is coming toward Atlanta. That could cause some ponding on the roads. There are portions of I-75 that are very susceptible to it. And then the north side of town also getting some very heavy rain for us this evening. You take a look at the estimated rainfall. Now in downtown, less than an inch. There are some spots here north side of town where you're over 2 inches at this point. So again, just another concern that we might have tonight as we go through the remainder of the evening. The good news is there is some clearing here back to your west, but there are more lines of storms. There's another cluster here that's coming through Alabama tonight, then heavier shields of rain up across North Georgia through Tennessee and then through the Carolinas as well. Just a lot happening for us tonight as the actual low itself spins way back here in Mississippi, the post-tropical delta. All right, we're going to talk more about the storms tonight, but also keeping you informed of what's going on with Delta and the cleanup that we're dealing with in the aftermath in Lake Charles, Louisiana, being hit twice in a month and a half. First with Hurricane Laura, Category 4, and now a Category 2 Delta hitting last night. Power out in a lot of places, and still a ton of cleanup to do. A lot of people put their debris out at the curbside here, and then you got to do it all over again, unfortunately. It's just a tough situation overall. Let's update you on what we know about Delta right now, where it's going from here. You know, get some impressions from Dr. Knabb. Dr. Knabb, you know, you see these images, your heart breaks for these people in Louisiana that have to go through it yet again. 4 landfalls in Louisiana this season, a record for that state.
Yeah, and it was such an unusual evacuation scenario for Lake Charles because most of the people left not because of the storm surge threat, but because there were so few safe places to take shelter from the strong winds, and they did get those strong winds. And notice also after landfall, you got this band forming in southeast Louisiana that had some tree damage that was caused there and in southwestern Mississippi. That band has held together all the way through Alabama, Florida Panhandle, some flooding in Pensacola earlier today, and that has gone all the way here into Georgia. And so this is all part of the transformation of the hurricane into a frontal system, but that outer band has kind of always been there. And there's always been kind of a frontal system in the southeast that Delta has moved into. So now they've all merged together, and you can see the center of the low is over Mississippi, but the center of action certainly has been in Georgia today. You can see the low-level flow coming off the Gulf and the Atlantic Ocean. Look at that. I mean, just tremendous moisture and you know, fuel for these storms. But you've also got wind shear. Look at the wind direction at 5,000 feet, coming more out of the south and southwest. And we've lost all the tornado warnings that, that were in great number a little while ago, in part because the sun has gone down, we're losing the instability. So while the wind shear has been plenty, as Mike has been talking about, we're losing that instability. However, there's enough instability still and enough moisture and enough focus that we could take this area of thunderstorms and rain that has primarily been producing the severe weather, and it's now going to start primarily producing a flood problem in upstate South Carolina and into North Carolina.
All right. Dr. Knabb, thanks so much for that update. You know, a lot of folks are without power this evening. A lot of places in Texas and Louisiana and in Mississippi, close to 600,000 customers without power. Most of those in Louisiana. Current outage is 454,000 customers.
Oh, humans, listen to what every strain, every twist, oh no, and every backache is telling you. You cannot do this. Pain says you can't, Advil says you can.
Every morning at 4:30, you hear the cooks hop on the floor. It's hard times in the mill, my love, hard times in the mill. Every morning right at 6, don't that old bell make you sick? Hard times in the mill, my love, hard times.
Still covering severe weather for you tonight. Listen to that. It's a scary sound, no question. Tornado warnings going off in Douglas County, Georgia. Numerous tornado warnings across the Atlanta metro throughout the evening, and we still have a tornado warning tonight on the east side. That's a look at downtown. More heavy rain is coming in. Some spots have picked up well over 2 inches of rain in the last hour and a half or so, and there's more where that came from. We still have a tornado watch in effect, and it means that conditions are favorable still for tornadoes to form, especially in an area around the metro tonight, but it does still include Columbus and Macon. That watch goes until the top of the hour. All right, you can see where the heavy clusters of storms are really focused in this corridor along, say, I-85 up through Atlanta. Tornado warning for us tonight. It's up in Gwinnett County. This is going to include along Highway 29 and up toward Berkeley Lake. DeKalb and Gwinnett are included in that, and there's a lot of rain that's hiding these tornadoes this evening. They're going to be rain wrapped. You'll never see them, and it's dark tonight too. 9 o'clock, the expiration on that. Berkeley Lake, Duluth, and Lilburn, those are all places we want you to take shelter. That's as good as rotation as we've seen maybe in the last half hour, 45 minutes, and that's pushing off to the north here. So just outside of Tucker, but right into Lilburn, Pleasant Hill, and Duluth. In all those places, you're talking a decent amount of population now. You've got the second most populated county in Georgia being hit at this point. So Lilburn, 840, that's now. In Pleasant Hill, around 844. That means you got about 4 minutes to take shelter. And in Duluth, going to hit you about 851. You've got about 12 minutes to take shelter. Get to your basement or get to the lowest level of your home and cover your head tonight. Want to also get you back into Birmingham, by the way. We got hit with a really strong line earlier. Another line coming through you right now. All this out ahead of the dynamics that was once Hurricane Delta. We are certainly getting some really intense video coming out of Delta and what the storm did. How about this? Near Gilcrest, Texas, U.S. Coast Guard rescuing 6 people. They were stranded on their boat during Delta stormy weather. I have no idea why you'd be on your boat, but the Coast Guard had gotten a report of 3 fishing vessels that ran aground carrying 4 adults, 2 infants, 3 dogs. No life jackets. The Coast Guard used ships and helicopter to find and rescue 6 in all. Wow. Hats off to the Coast Guard. Doing a tremendous job. How about the wind? Look at that. Off goes the, my gosh. Off goes the, I don't know if that's a carport or what that was, or just that just got peeled right off and tossed. Wow, like it was nothing. Delta's winds ripping it right off there in Louisiana. We had wind gusts, by the way. The highest wind gust we saw was 100 miles an hour, but let's take a look at the power of Delta. If we can, Lake Charles, look at this. A wind-driven rain in Lake Charles here. I mean, we've been so hard hit here. This is right in downtown. We've been so hard hit here in August, September, now October. And we hope that the season just shuts off for us at this point, and the rain was just tremendous. We picked up over 9 inches of rain there. There's your top wind gusts, by the way. In Lake Charles, they gusted to 96. The highest reported was Texas Point at 100. New Iberia to Cameron to Port Arthur, all gusting well over hurricane force. I mean, there was, by the way, there's a little bit, there's like a little, you're on one, why was the west side so much stronger than the east side? We actually had this a little mini punch of wind shear that came in on the southwest side. I think it might have been just enough right there at the Texas-Louisiana state line to enhance the winds force. As I was mentioning, over 9 inches of rain in Lake Charles, Alexandria, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Port Arthur, all getting flooding rain that occurred here. And you take a look at the Doppler radar estimates, and there was just a cluster there around Lake Charles and up toward Alexandria. That's Alexandria right there, Lake Charles down here. And then over on Baton Rouge, that's that cluster right there. It was just non-stop for us here, everything pushing south to north. Friday's record rainfall in Lake Charles, and October rainfall average, by the way. There was a Friday, that was just Friday, we had 9.5 inches. Usually for the month of October, we get just under 4. So if that tells you anything, picking up nearly twice as much rain in a day's time as we see in an entire month. Big surge, by the way. Do you see this? This was crazy, I thought. Big surge here and a lot of wave action in Cypremort Point in Louisiana. Look at all that salt water that's coming in. Dr. Knabb, I want to get your take on this. When I saw it, I was like, wow, that is impressive stuff. There's no doubt that surge was devastating in some places.
Yeah, this was a relatively large hurricane, getting comparable in horizontal size to Laura, even though it wasn't as strong. And also, this is such a vulnerable coastline. It is relatively easy, unfortunately, for a Category 2 hurricane to produce some pretty big storm surge. And the landfall locations of the centers are only 12 miles apart. But the location of where Delta Center came ashore was where Laura's worst storm surge was, because that was on the east side of Laura. Now, on the east side of Delta, the maximum storm surge was a little bit farther to the east. Within that area where the Hurricane Center called for 7 to 11 feet, they got about 10 feet above normally dry ground.
Those numbers, I think, for probably a lot of people, surprised them. But maybe they shouldn't. They shouldn't be surprised, because each storm, Dr. Knabb, you say this a lot, has its own personality, has its own traits, and this one did.
Yeah, and one thing that was starting to happen as the center was approaching the coastline is that the inner eye wall was starting to deteriorate. We started to see an outer eye wall take shape, and so you had a very broad area of maximum winds, and that's where we got probably about 10 feet, and we had a record measurement of 9 feet above normally dry ground at this gauge, Mike, that was 50 miles east of the center.
You know, if there's anything good that came out of it, a pretty sparsely populated location. Not a whole lot of people live there. That's a wildlife refuge area down there. Dr. Knabb, thank you. We're back after this. I want to keep you up to date on what's happening in the Atlanta metro area with a tornado warning for us right now. It's on the east and northeast side of town for us tonight. DeKalb and Gwinnett counties under a tornado warning. Gwinnett County, excuse me, DeKalb been dropped from that. But Duluth and Lilburn are at risk tonight. That storm coming almost right over I-85 right now. We'll zoom right down in. A huge cluster of rain, by the way, so it's raining cats and dogs for us at this point. But Lilburn sits right down in here. Storm's gone just past Lilburn at this point. You're going to come across 378 and I-85 for you tonight. We'll zoom right down in there from maybe Shady Drive northwest up toward maybe Meadow Church Road, Cardinal Lake Drive. Those are the areas I'd be most concerned about, but I-85 is going to take a direct hit from that. There's an inflow notch right in there. The spin would be right about there, and the tornado warning effect. There are spins all over the place, by the way, in Atlanta. I've been looking at the radar. I mean, you can just pick them out. They're all over the place. There's all kinds of wind shear happening in the atmosphere right now, so these little spin-ups of tornadoes happen. Sometimes they happen very quickly, and then they just dissipate, and they're gone. But if it happens over top of your neighborhood, you know, it's just terrible timing, right? But I think that threat's going to start to diminish over the course of the next hour or two here as the sun has set. The instability is going to start to wane a little bit. There's still a lot of wind shear out there, but there may not be enough to get the storms actually going. There's a lot of rain now, so we're stabilizing the air quite a bit, but there's still a lot of rain to go in Atlanta as another surge comes in from the south and west. In some places it picked up about 2.5 inches of rain so far. There's this line back through Alabama. There's another line that extends from Georgia and South Carolina back down through Florida. A lot of dynamics in the atmosphere right now, a ton of wind shear in the atmosphere where you're getting a lot of winds from the surface. They're kind of coming in this direction. Then you're getting winds that are a little bit higher up that are coming in more from the southwest or west. And so you've got a lot of that meeting up right in here in Georgia, and so the issues. But look at all the rain that we're getting right now. A lot of that all influenced by what was Hurricane Delta, the low spinning back here in Mississippi as we speak. All right, we continue to track the damage that Delta has unleashed. NOAA Justin Michaels updates us on what Delta did to Lake Charles, Louisiana, just 6 weeks after Hurricane Laura struck there.
It's really kind of hard to believe that 44 days has passed since another hurricane, Hurricane Laura, came through, laying waste to much of Lake Charles, Louisiana, back at the end of August. And then here we are, the day after, not even a full 24 hours since the eye wall came right through Lake Charles, Louisiana, of Delta. That's amazing. 2 hurricanes, catastrophic in their own rights, coming through the same community in about 6 weeks. And you can see the results of that, folks. Take a look at the debris pile in just this one cul-de-sac. Roof after roof, blue tarp after blue tarp. In fact, over here, we have homes with boards still on the windows, blue tarps on both of those homes. And we do know that many people, tens of thousands of people, did evacuate from Lake Charles, Louisiana. The mayor tells us many more people left this time as opposed to Laura, and that's a good thing. So when they come back, they're going to have to clean up again. They're going to have to do it all over again. And in some cases, it might be worse this time because they took all the effort over the last 6 weeks to clean up. And then for a lot of people, Delta just undid all of that. So much heartache, so much pain, so much back-breaking work to do. But one thing we hear from every single person we talk to, whether they're young or old, is Lake Charles strong, Louisiana strong. They're going to come back, but they certainly are all asking for a break from this 2020 hurricane season. In Lake Charles, Louisiana, Justin Michaels, the Weather Channel.
All right, so let's bring back in our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb. Obviously, it's been a very tough go in states like Louisiana with 4 different hits so far this year from a named storm, Dr. Knabb. I know that we've only got, 6 weeks left in the season or so, but at the rate we're going, we could still see several more storms.
Yeah, and I hesitate to say, Mike, that it's only the humans that say the hurricane season ends on November 30th.
Can go into December, we know that.
2005, I was writing advisories for Tropical Storm Zeta on New Year's Eve. So,
amazing.
You know, sometimes these busy seasons can be kind of late enders. Let's take a look at the numbers so far. When you add Delta into the mix, that's 25 named storms, 4 of those out of the Greek alphabet, 9 hurricanes, and 5 of those have made landfall as hurricanes in the United States now when you add Delta into the mix, and it is our 3rd major hurricane of the season. What else is out there? Well, you know, Delta formed from a tropical wave that originated from the west coast of Africa, and it just didn't form until it got into the Western Caribbean. Well, we've got another tropical wave out here in the central tropical Atlantic. These come off the west coast of Africa every 2, 3, or 4 days. This one has enough organization, enough thunderstorm activity for the Hurricane Center to be watching it a little more closely than the other waves that are out there. 20% chance of development in the next 5 days. Now, what about beyond that? Well, here's the way it has looked on the visible imagery during the day today. So it's got some interesting character to it. And in the big picture, it's got a long way to go before it could ever directly affect any land. Unfortunately, there's a lot of warm water ahead of it. It's not too late in the season to get waves to develop out there in the central tropical Atlantic. And the waters are warmer than average in nearly the entire basin, except for the cold wake created by our cold fronts and with Delta. But we do have a friend in the mix here, I'm happy to say. There is a mid-oceanic trough in the middle and upper levels that when this tropical wave runs into that, it will probably start to struggle. So here's that wave in the models. And if you look closely here when we get to early next week, see these traveling white lines bending down here? That's probably going to shear that wave apart. But we have, as Mike said, 6 weeks to go in the human-designated hurricane season, and we got a little bit more on Delta and the severe weather. Stay with us.
On severe weather around Atlanta Metro tonight, including a tornado warning for you. This is in Gwinnett County. This is going up along I-85 this evening, going past Lilburn and up around Duluth and headed towards Sugar Hill. It's come past I-85, or I mean portions of it right on I-85, with the rotation being about right in there on the highway, cutting right between Norcross and Lawrenceville this evening. And then that's pushing off to the north pretty quickly here this evening. These little brief spinets are occurring, then the rotation dies down pretty quickly, but a lot of rain is happening for us in Atlanta tonight, and this is why we do still have, we're just newly issued, I should say, flash flood warning. It does include Fulton County, DeKalb County, and Cobb County. So it's right in town, the north side of town, south side of town. There's another slug of moisture coming in as well. How much have we picked up? If you look at the Doppler estimates here, most of it is under 3 inches, right in town 1.1, but it's kind of the rainfall rate in essence that's really nailing us here. If you get these really heavy rainfall rates, you can get some quick flash flooding, some ponding in some low-lying areas. So just keep that in mind. More rain to go tonight. I think the tornado threat begins to diminish as we go for the remainder of the evening. More storms spreading out across Alabama, through the Carolinas, heavy rain up through Tennessee and North Carolina. That continues through the night and most of us through the day tomorrow as well. Well, thank you for watching this evening. We hope you have a safe night. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning on the Weather Channel.